Hello, I'm Steve Weber, the host of Essential Book Drop. Today we're talking about the 3 new releases that we think you should know about. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Cassandra. Hello, Cass.
Hi, Steve.
Cass, let's go with number 1.
Let's do it. And this is, it's a fantastic stack of sources today.
It really is. They kind of showcase the whole spectrum, right?
Yeah,
From, super sweet escapism all the way to, well, something much darker.
exactly. We are absolutely going on a journey, starting with that escapism and then getting into the shadows a bit.
I like it. So let's jump in with that first one, Royal Icing by Madison Score.
Okay, so this is pure wish fulfillment. I mean, right from the title.
Totally. But it's anchored in a really, a very modern and relatable problem, which I think is the hook.
That's absolutely the core hook. Our protagonist, Emma Clark, she's a phenomenal baker.
Right. She's clearly talented,
Yeah.
but she is just stuck.
Utterly stifled. And the source talks about this incredibly restrictive non-compete clause.
Which is just brutal. It basically ties her to this Manhattan bakery where she gets absolutely zero credit for her own work.
She's doing all the work for none of the recognition. You feel that deep professional resentment from page 1.
You really do. And that's what drives the whole plot. It's not just about, finding a prince.
No, not at all. The stakes here are economic, and they're foundational. Emma needs money, and fast.
For her mom, right, after a health crisis.
Exactly. And, more importantly, to finally fund her own bakery. So this opportunity, this gig at a European castle,
It's not just a vacation.
no, it's liberation. It's the key to accelerating her dream by 2 full years, a full 2 years.
Which is why the setting is so perfect. It's this beautiful, snow globe version of a European castle.
The perfect escape from her corporate Manhattan life.
But the job itself is high pressure. She has to mastermind the greatest dessert the kingdom has ever seen.
And impress the impossible-to-please queen, so the professional stakes are still there.
Right. And this is where the romance comes in and kind of subverts the usual fairy tale thing.
Yeah, she meets Prince Leo, but he's not the typical aloof royal.
No, he's out there getting his hands dirty.
Yeah.
The source says he's laser-focused on building a new women's shelter.
He's the anti-prince prince. And what's crucial is that he respects her ambition. He sees her as a professional peer.
Which makes their connection feel earned. It's not just about proximity.
Exactly. And that makes the tension so much better.
Because if it were easy, there'd be no story. The queen has one rule.
Just one. No dating Americans.
So you have these 2 people who are going to have this instant connection, and that connection immediately threatens everything they're both working for.
That's the delicious conflict, isn't it? The price of admission for their relationship is her entire career, the very thing she's fighting so hard to build.
And the source promises that they will knowingly sabotage their own lives and careers just to make out under the mistletoe.
And that kind of high-stakes, self-inflicted chaos is just, it's so compelling for this audience.
It really is. It's that perfect mix of career fantasy, escaping the 9 to 5, and that undeniable swoony connection.
Okay, so now we pivot away from the sugar-dusted castle.
But we're staying in the world of high emotional stakes.
Definitely. We're moving to Holiday Unscripted by Natasha Madison, and if Royal Icing was a bespoke cake, this one. This is the ultimate trope buffet.
And what a buffet it is. I mean, we've got second chance romance, enemies to lovers,
Forced proximity.
and the big one, brother's best friend. That sounds less like a story and more like a carefully constructed algorithm designed for maximum reader angst.
But that's precisely why it works. It's strategic layering.
Okay, explain that.
Well, each trope just adds a fresh complication to the main relationship. It means the tension never, ever dips.
And the 7-year gap between them is huge here.
It's vital. They're not arguing over some little misunderstanding from last week.
Right. These are deep, unhealed wounds that have been festering for almost a decade.
And the setup just throws the heroine, Elizabeth, into maximum misery from the jump.
It really does. She has to go to her brother's Christmas wedding, and she already hates Christmas.
And then everything that can go wrong does. Her luggage doesn't show up.
She gets displaced from her room.
And the final humiliation, she has to stay with Nate, the man who broke her heart 7 years ago.
You just feel for her immediately. The resentment is cranked up to 11 before they even speak.
That's essential for the enemies to lovers dynamic to work. She's primed for conflict. And the forced proximity of a wedding week means they can't escape it.
There's no hiding. They have to perform civility for everyone else while they're just, boiling inside.
And the key here, which the source confirms, is that we get both points of view.
Which is so important. We see her fury, But then we get inside his head.
Exactly. And from Nate's perspective, we learn this isn't just about old chemistry. He admits she pushed every single button I have.
But he also says she gets under my skin in the best ways.
And that tells you everything. The connection, the physical chemistry, it's all still there, burning just under the surface.
And there's that one line from him, his quiet wish that he hopes his wish of having her comes true.
Mhm.
Even though he knows she's just going to leave again after the wedding, that vulnerability is powerful.
It really is. It shifts him from just being the villain of their past to a guy who is fighting for a second chance,
A second chance he probably doesn't deserve.
but desperately wants. And that kind of high-angst, emotionally charged romance is so popular, the audience loves watching characters reckon with their pasts.
So we've had career liberation in a royal fantasy, and we've had emotional survival at a Christmas wedding.
And now we are taking a hard left turn.
A very hard left. We're moving from romance to pure psychological dread with The Night Guest by Marina Scott.
The tone just shifts dramatically, and the setting is, I think, instantly compelling because it's so unexpected for Gothic suspense.
Yeah, this isn't a crumbling English manor.
No, we're in 1903, Omaha, Nebraska.
Which places this narrative right in the middle of a very specific American historical moment.
And that context is key. The sources tell us spiritualism was incredibly fashionable at the time. It was almost entertainment for grieving families looking for closure.
Which grounds the horror in something very real. Historical vulnerability.
Absolutely. We meet our protagonist, Nina Wilson, when her life has just completely collapsed.
Her father's dead. She's drowning in debt. The family estate is crumbling.
Her engagement is broken. Her mother is basically incapacitated by grief. She has lost everything, her financial security, her social standing.
She's completely isolated and desperate. And in 1903, for a woman to lose all that.
She becomes incredibly susceptible to exploitation.
And that's the open wound that this mysterious medium, Leroy Marshall, steps right into.
She invites him to the house, hoping for some kind of closure for her mother, but he arrives as this catalyst for dread.
The description of him is so good. His charisma is equal parts alluring and repellent.
Yes, so her instincts are screaming that something is wrong, something is predatory about this man.
But she's so desperate for relief, and she has no other options, so she lets him stay.
And that's where the core ambiguity of the story really kicks in.
Because his presence seems to awaken something in the house itself.
And the book just layers on that psychological suspense. Is this house actually haunted? Has he summoned a real otherworldly threat?
Or is this a psychological thriller? Is he just a very, very clever charlatan?
A con man exploiting grieving women by using this trend of spiritualism to manipulate Nina and, take everything she has left. The author keeps you guessing.
And that historical context makes it so much more chilling than a simple ghost story.
It does. As a vulnerable woman in that era with no legal or financial protection, Nina is easy prey.
So the horror isn't just about ghosts. It's about the terrifying realization of how easily a human predator can dismantle you when you're at your weakest.
It really appeals to readers who love that slow burn, atmospheric dread. The kind where you're constantly questioning what's real and what's in the protagonist's head.
Okay, so we've covered the full spectrum here. We started with Emma, who was pursuing, professional and financial freedom in a castle.
Then we moved to Elizabeth, who is navigating emotional brokenness and all that resentment in a very confined space.
And finally, Nina, fighting isolation and potential manipulation in a historical setting.
Yeah.
Fueled by this deep, isolating grief.
And I think the big insight, the thing that connects all three of these very different sources, is that these extraordinary circumstances always seem to arise from a moment of profound vulnerability.
That's a great point. Whether it's Emma's financial desperation,
Or Elizabeth's unresolved heartache, or Nina's total social and emotional collapse, the story always begins when the main character has hit their lowest point.
and that forces them to take a huge risk they otherwise wouldn't.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that really unnerving question that the Gothic suspense of the night guests poses, that ambiguity is a challenge to you, the reader. It sort of raises an important question for you to consider next time you run into a story like this, one rooted in that kind of uncertainty. How much of the horror we read about, whether it's otherworldly dread or just dramatic chaos, how much of it is actually fueled not by ghosts or fate, but by the strategic manipulation of deeply human desperation?
The idea that the greatest threats are the ones we invite in ourselves when we're at our most isolated point.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time. Cass, what do you always say after I always say that remember this, whatever you do, whenever you write?
Your mind becomes its own kingdom.